Hey folks, welcome back to Ed's Garage at Merton Hyundai. So today, doing a comparison between a 2022 Hyundai Tucson preferred all-wheel drive and a RAV4. This is the LE all-wheel drive model. Now the LE is their base. The Tucson here, the preferred trim, is one step above base. Now, it is $1,000 more expensive. However, the interest rate's like half, so it ends up being cheaper if you're financing. So I figured it would be still a good comparison. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna look at the overall styling of both vehicles. Styling is subjective, but we're gonna still check it out. We're gonna talk about warranty differences, build quality differences, interior space and amenities, that sort of thing. So first off, let's start with the front end styling. Now the Tucson has been redesigned for 2022. The previous Tucson, amusingly, actually was shaped more like the RAV4. The RAV4 is still going with the current body style there that's been around since 2019. So one thing that's pretty cool on the Tucson is the front end lights. Now you'll see you got this big signature grille with the little sort of daytime running lights there. So if we fire it up, all right, it is currently running. We'll get the headlights on. Now, full disclaimer guys, this isn't a bashing Toyota video. I mean, it's gonna sound like it, but that's not my intention. My intention is to point out the features and benefits of the Tucson, and to do so, I do need to say some things about the Toyota RAV4 that it's nice, so please don't take it the wrong way. Full disclaimer, if you're a Toyota fan, you might want to move on to a different video. If you're a Toyota fan that wants to be a little bit educated on the Hyundai product, then by all means stick around and we'll see what's so great about the all-new Tucson, the award-winning all-new Tucson. All right, so first off, you can see we've got these really cool daytime running lights right here that are currently lit up right above the headlights. Now they are a LED reflective headlight assembly. Now if we go over to the RAV, so in your rear view mirror at night, you're going to see two dots there, okay, and it's going to look like every other vehicle, whereas the Tucson has that very unique sort of front end styling with the daytime running lights. Kind of cool. Also on the front end of the Tucson, you've got the air curtain pass-through here, a functional air vent versus the non-functional piece of plastic right there on the. And I also want to point out that on the front of the Tucson, the hood actually comes all the way to the front of the vehicle. This one happens to have a hood deflector on it, but the metal part of that hood does come all the way to this end. And on the RAV, there's a seam there. Okay, so we'll start up the Tucson first. The remote start there. There we go, and then we'll start up the Toyota RAV4 with the. Okay, it doesn't have remote start. All right, so let's open up the door here, and no proximity either. Okay, we'll start it up. All right, so I've popped the hoods of both vehicles because I want to show you a couple things underneath the hoods of them both here. So first off, with the sort of soundproof barrier up here, this is sort of insulation that's pinned to the bottom of the hood. You'll notice how tight it's actually up against the metal there. You can't get underneath it with your fingers. It's really, really well done and laid out. Check this out. On the RAV, I can tuck my whole hand right under there, and it's the thing I'd be worried about is that coming loose over time. So definitely a little bit nicer on the Tucson. Also on the Tucson, you've got this covering on the left-hand side here and the right-hand side, of course. And for instance, if we want to change the air filter, it's right here. Check this out. There's the air filter. Of course, the engine's running, so I'm not going to take it out right now, but it's just as easy as that. Pretty cool. Positive terminal of the battery, well protected under a nice little cover there. And everything else is pretty self-explanatory. We have a look at the RAV. The air filter is actually underneath this box, which is held in by clips. You got to pull that whole thing up and then kind of awkwardly pull the air filter out. This one also has a little protective cover over the positive terminal. But as you can see, it's just, yeah, there we go. It's just cheaper, okay? So don't get me wrong, you know, Toyota makes an incredibly reliable vehicle. The engine on this vehicle is going to last 400,000 or 500,000 kilometers without a problem. My issue with the RAV4 and other Toyota products is not the engine, it's not the driveline or the transmission, it's everything else about it. They're great vehicles, but there are certain things that they sacrifice as far as like build quality goes that Hyundai doesn't. So again, not trying to bash Toyota. It's still a good product. Check it out, compare the two. You make a decision. I'm just helping out those people that are interested in the Tucson to gain a little bit more knowledge about why they should buy a Tucson. Now, with warranties, this has a 5-year 100,000K warranty. This has a 5-year 100,000K powertrain warranty. 5-year 100,000 on almost everything. 3-year 60,000 on almost everything. 5-year 100,000 on the powertrain. 5 years of roadside assistance, not kilometer dependent. 3-year 60,000 kilometer roadside assistance. All right, so a couple of things to note on that. Now, as far as the engines go, they're actually very, very similar. They're both 2.5 liters. They're both inline fours. The RAV actually has a little bit more power. It's got 16 more horsepower and 6 foot-pounds more torque. So 203 horsepower versus the 187 in the Tucson. But strangely, it doesn't tow as much. So the towing capacity on the Tucson is around about 1,600 kilograms, just under 1,600 kilograms. The towing capacity on the RAV4 is 900 kilograms less. It actually has 900 kilograms less towing capacity than the Tucson. I found that very strange. So if you're needing to tow something, if you're needing to tow a small trailer, the Tucson's definitely going to be the better pick between those two. Now, one more thing I want to show you under the hood of the engine here, or under the hood of the Tucson. Notice the motor mount on the left-hand side here. This is a breakaway motor mount. It's got an isolator here for sound noise and stuff like that as well. But that'll actually break away in the event of a forward collision. It'll actually drop. If we look at the RAV, you can see we've got a motor mount here as well. Now this is probably also designed to break away, but this is an older design. You'll see these types of motor mounts on vehicles from the 1990s, believe it or not. The other thing to note in here is the amount of structural adhesive on this vehicle. You can see it down here as well. Now it's on the Tucson as well. Have a look, you can see it all along here. The Tucson is going to have several hundred feet. I think it's over 400 feet of structural adhesive, whereas the RAV has less than 100 feet of structural adhesive. That's heavily used in the airline industry to hold airplanes together, and it's a good product. It's very, very strong. It increases the weld strength of those welded points, but also it's good for safety. So the Tucson has a 5-star frontal crash rating from the NHTSA, whereas the RAV only has a 4-star. So if you're looking for the safer vehicle, it's going to be the Tucson. Now, I touched on reliability there with the RAV4. It's quite good. But one thing I didn't mention was the fact that for 2022, J.D. Power & Associates awarded Hyundai, Genesis, and Kia 3 of the top 4 spots in its overall J.D. Power & Associates reliability study. So while the RAV, being a Toyota, the Toyota brand, came in at 5th place, Hyundai actually came in at 4th. So that's overall reliability. So you're not really losing out on reliability going with a Hyundai. So a better warranty, just as reliable now as a Toyota. Now, 10, 20 years ago, sure, I wouldn't argue with you the fact that Hyundai had some issues. But you know that recently Toyota actually recalled 100,000 plus vehicles for an issue with their the diesel engines in places like Europe and such. So they've got their problems too. Every company has their own problems at some point in time. All right, so the next thing we're going to look at is the back of the vehicle. Now, the styling on the back is quite good on both. You got some pretty unique tail lights on the Hyundai. Kind of a nice layout. You do have LED lights on the back of the RAV4, but notice the placement of the window wiper. On the RAV, it's right in the middle at the bottom. It kind of looks out of place, well, except that, you know, it has to have a window wiper. But in the Tucson, it's totally clean down here. The wiper's actually tucked up underneath, so a little bit of a better design element there. Finally, before we start looking at the inside of the vehicle, let's look at some of the styling on the side and then some things on the roofline here in a moment. So styling on the Tucson on the side is very, very sharp edged. You've got this sort of parametric design flow going down the side of the vehicle. Back here on the C-pillars, you got this kind of cool sort of design element. On the RAV4, a little cleaner look. It's a little less busy, so some people do like that, but you'll notice it's actually got hubcaps. So for this price range, you got hubcaps over steel wheels, whereas with the Tucson, you have aluminum alloy wheels. So the nicer wheels go to the Tucson. The RAV does have some plastic sort of accents on here as well. That sounds kind of cheap too, actually. But notice on the roof rail, if I grab the rail, I can actually move it a lot. I can just twist it with my hands and it just moves like crazy. Look at this. Very cheap. By contrast, look at the Hyundais. I can move the whole car with it, and it doesn't move, it doesn't flex. So kind of cheap on the roof rails there, Toyota. All right, now they both have marker lights on the mirrors. They both have blind spot monitoring in the mirrors. So there's our icon right there and the marker light on the side. But one thing to point out with the Tucson is with the blind spot monitoring system, not only does it warn you if there's a car there, but if you still proceed over to that lane, it'll actually yank you back into your own lane using the opposite side wheels. Now, the RAV4 won't do that. As long as you have the turn signal on, it'll disable lane keep assist, and you'll be able to go and hit that car beside you. So they both have lane keep assist, of course. They both disable lane keep assist on a turn signal, but on the Hyundai, when there's a car in your blind spot, it will prevent you from hitting that person. All right, I've gone ahead and opened up the hatch on both vehicles, and you can see on both, a person who is 6'2" can very easily walk underneath the hatch. The hatch on the Toyota is about a ½ an inch higher, so if you're a little bit taller than I am, you won't hit your head on the Toyota. You might graze your head on the hatch of the Tucson. However, they are both nearly identical in height. Having a look at the floor space in the back, the Toyota is slightly wider. It has maybe about an inch or two in width. And it's actually a little bit longer. So floor space is a little larger on the Toyota. However, the overall space in the back of the Tucson is greater. We have better cargo space in the back of the Tucson, especially when the seats are folded down. It's an extra 100 liters of space. Now, when we measure from the seat back to the edge of the door, the Tucson has about 2 inches extra additional length. So if you're wanting to sleep in the vehicle, maybe you're camping with it or whatever, the Tucson's going to be a little bit more spacious and a bit more comfortable. And the reason it's more comfortable, if we get down low, you can see, while we do have a flat floor in the RAV4 to the back of the seat, notice how inclined the seat back itself is. If we have a look at the Tucson, again, nice flat floor from here all the way to the seat back, but then all the way up the seat back as well. It does raise a little bit, but it's definitely a lot smoother of an incline. And the reason for that is because the seats themselves kneel down when you lay the seat back down. So if I release this and lift this up, you'll see that seat actually goes up and down. And it actually locks in the seat back so it doesn't move, which is kind of nice. In contrast, on the RAV4, the seat back does not lock in, the seat base does not move, and this can actually flop around quite easily. A couple more interesting points in the cargo area. On the Tucson, you got your 12-volt power outlet here, and a little handle here to fold down the seat. Whereas in the RAV, there's no power points anywhere. There is a small storage space there, but to fold down the rear seat, you actually have to reach all the way in. So if you've got shorter arms, that's going to be a little bit annoying. You got to reach all the way in, you got to push that, and that releases it, and you got to push it all the way down like that as well. So definitely a win going to the Tucson for cargo convenience. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is the back seat area and the back seat space and the comfort and such. But before I do that, I'm actually going to shut the vehicles off. Now, I do have the headlights on both vehicles, and one thing I wanted to show you real quick. So they both have automatic, but what I always recommend is to keep the headlights in the on position, because on auto, you don't actually have tail lights. Check this out. So the lights are now off, and during the day, you know, you want to have tail lights as well. So I always recommend putting the headlights to the on position. When you shut off the Toyota with its turnkey ignition, it then screams at you that the headlights are still on, and it tells you to turn them off. Now that's smart that they tell you to turn them off, but what's frustrating is that the fact that you have to turn them off. With Hyundai, you don't have to actually turn off the headlights. They're smart enough to just shut them off when you turn the car off. So if I go around to the Hyundai now, and I press the start-stop button, there we go. I can now close the door, and I don't have to worry about it. The headlights will turn off after a few seconds. All right, now the Tucson has better legroom in the front, better legroom in the rear, better headroom in the front, and better hip room both in the front and rear than the RAV4, than the Toyota. But to demonstrate that and what that looks like in person, I'm going to jump in. But before I've done so, I've gone ahead and I've moved the front seat all the way back. Now, it actually has longer seat rails than the Toyota, so it actually has more movement. And right now, the seat is too far back for me to sit in the front. On the Toyota, it's just right all the way back. So we've got better legroom in the front by a long shot. But what I've done, moved it all the way back, lowered the seat all the way down, and I've put the seat back in its most upright position. So just to have sort of a fair contest, we're going to see what that looks like for the back seat passengers. All right, so climbing into the back seat. Now, let's have a look here. So this is the space that I have in front of my knees. Okay. Cut to the Toyota. And same thing, seat's all the way down, seat back is all the way back, and the handle is, or the seat itself is all the way back as well. And jumping straight into the Toyota. All right, so right away you can see my hand is not as wide as the Tucson. I'm looking at probably a difference of about 2 inches there. Now while I'm back here, let's have a look at the actual overall comfort of the seat. So I can slide my feet underneath the front seat, which is good, but check this out. I've got quite a bit of space underneath my legs here. I don't know if you can see that very well, but I would say probably 1.5 inches at the front of the seat, you know, underneath my legs. So the front part of my legs are not touching the seat base. It's just kind of my butt sitting on the seat. I do have a center cup holder armrest, so we'll put that down now. It is nice and soft, and I've got 2 cup holders in here, so that's good to see. If I want to recline the seat, I don't have a handle down here. I've actually got to use the handle up here, and it reclines. That's it, just one spot. All right, I think you know what's going to happen in the Tucson. Last thing I want to show is that we don't have a seat back pocket on here. We do have one on the passenger side, however, and I've got a 12-volt power outlet down here and a little sort of rather flat cubby hole for, I don't know, whatever you want to have fall out when you accelerate. So let's have a look at Tucson. All right, so just to show I'm not cheating, seat's all the way down, seat back is in its most upright position, and the seat is all the way back. Let's jump into the Tucson. Okay, so this is where I was sitting before. Now, first of all, let's see, we've got a center cup holder armrest. Again, nice and cushy, 2 cup holders. Check this out, though. The RAV4 does win in the connectivity because I don't have a power outlet back here. I do have 2 vents. I don't know if I saw the vents on the RAV4, so we win on the climate control back here. But now we're going to try out the seat back. So let's see how many different places of recline there is. First of all, I have the handle on the left-hand side here, which makes life a whole lot easier than trying to reach back onto the shoulder. So let's lean this back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. About 9 positions. So the seat back goes back way further in the Tucson than it does in the RAV4, and quite frankly this is much more comfortable. Now let's have a look under my legs here, because that's another thing we were checking out in the RAV4. So as you can see, I do not have any space underneath my legs because my legs are actually touching the base of the seat. I do also have the ability to slide my feet underneath the front seat as well, of course, and I have seat back pockets in both of the front seats. So definitely a win for the seats back here. More comfortable, more articulation with the seat backs. You can fold them down from the rear as well, and you've got the handle down here. The seat goes up and down. Now this seat is also apparently wider, so let's measure that and see what that looks like. All right, so just to make this fair, I've got the measuring tape up against the door on the one side, and we come and look at this side here. We are at 52.5 inches to the outer edge of the rear seat in the Tucson. Now we're going to go over to the RAV4 and see what the difference is. All right, so I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to go right up to the door there and have a look. And what we have is 52.5 inches. Interesting. It's exactly the same. But what the difference is the actual seat cushion. So we're going to measure that now. We're going to go to the edge of the seat cushion. You can see it wanting to go right over that little bump there. And we have 49 inches, maybe 48.5 inches. Okay, we'll check the Tucson again. This is important, of course, for families with children. If you've got 3 kids sitting in the back, you're going to want to have that good sort of hip room. Let's get it right on the edge there, and we're looking at 50 inches. So definitely a bit more space here. We're looking at about a good solid 1.5 inches more width on the seat. So amusingly enough, the difference between, or the distance between the doors is basically the same, but the seat itself is a little bit wider in the Tucson. And the funny thing is, you can actually still get your hand down here to access the little handle for the seat back. Next thing I want to see is the actual depth of the seat when you're sitting in it. So with the tape measure up against the seat back, we're looking at about 20 inches to the edge of the seat. And on the RAV, there we go, we're looking at about 19. So a bit of a longer seat base in the Tucson as well, about 1 inch longer. And that's probably why it was a little bit more comfortable. I also noticed that the height of the ground to the seat seemed to be better in the Tucson as well. So here we're looking at 13 inches, thereabouts, 13 and a half to the base of the seat from the floor. And maybe this was just my imagination. Definitely not. We're looking at 15 inches there. So, I mean, I think it's quite clear, guys, that the back seat comfort in the Tucson is better. You've got the air vents, you've got the wider seat, you've got the ability to recline it much more than the RAV4. You know, the extra seat back pocket, ease of use to get to the recline handle. The Tucson takes it for back seat space and comfort. All right, now before I jump in the front seat and go over some of the features there, one of the most common ways to kind of gauge the overall build quality of a vehicle is to see how many places they weld the doors in. I know it sounds kind of weird, but if you've got multiple weld points on a door, it's multiple points of failure in the event of a side impact collision. So let's have a look at the Tucson first. Now, of course, I already know what I'm about to find, but I just want to point it out. So looking at the door itself, you can see it's actually a solid piece of metal all the way around. Let me get really close here so you can actually see a little bit better. There's no weld point here. There's no weld point here, okay? So going around now to the front edge, again, totally smooth. This is a single stamped piece of metal. All right, there's no weld points in the corners. Let's have a look at the RAV4 and see if it's the same. I actually don't know, but we're gonna check. So let's have a look. All right, so starting down near the bottom here, yeah, this is all solid. Okay, so here is the first weld point. So I don't know if you can see on camera here, but there's some spot welds right here, and this is 2 different pieces of metal joined up. And then going up a little bit further, let's look under here. Okay, so same thing. There's actually a join right here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a welded point right there, okay? And let's see. What about this side here? Yeah, they've kind of covered it up with the, there we go. So I can see a weld point right there as well. Currently in the market, Hyundai is actually one of the safest, if not the safest car companies in the world. IIHS has given Hyundai more top safety picks, more top safety plus picks than pretty much any other brand in North America. The National Highway Transportation Administration also gives Hyundai 5 stars on pretty much every single one of our models in almost every crash test. So they've done, exceptionally well. And things like that, what I just showed you on the door there, those weld points and the structural adhesive that's used and the advanced high strength steel, because Hyundai, of course, is the only company that makes their own steel. All of these things lead to very, very safe vehicles. So pretty cool to see that when you kind of, look down in depth at certain little parts of the vehicle like that. All right, so let's check out front seat comfort. So I still have the seat in the same position that it was in before. It's currently all the way back with the seat back all the way up. So what we're gonna demonstrate now is the angle of my legs when I sit in the vehicle. Now, stretching out my legs onto the gas pedal here, you notice that if I really need to press the gas, my foot actually comes right off the ground because the gas pedal is slightly too far away right now. You'll notice the bend in my knees is not super great. This is a little bit too far away right now. I've got the seat back straight up. There we go. So right now I'm slightly too far from the pedals. I actually need to move forward a little bit in the Tucson. So I just want to demonstrate on a 6'2" person, you don't need to have the seat all the way back. So now I'm going to actually check the RAV4 and see what that looks like. And again, the seat itself, got a shock there, seat itself all the way back. All right, and again, all the way down, just like in the Tucson. Bring that seat back a bit. All right, and right off the bat, you can see my legs are at a greater angle, okay? And when I push hard on the gas, they're still, you know, this is basically where I would have to put the seat. I can't go any further back. I don't have to. This is fine for me. But if you're taller than I am, if you've got longer legs than me, you're going to notice the legroom in the Tucson is definitely better. All right, so how about headroom? So if I have the seat angled back slightly where I find it comfortable, I think that's probably a good place to put it. So the seat is all the way down right now, and this is interesting. There's actually a little bump in the roof line. It's kind of weird. So that's my headroom, so quite a bit of headroom, all right? But the seat is all the way down. So let's jump into, I keep getting zapped. Let's jump into the Tucson here. Okay, and again, seat is all the way down. Seat back is about the same angle that it was there, and yeah, it's a little bit more space. I'd say maybe an inch more. So better headroom, better legroom in the Tucson. Of course, we already knew that though. But yeah, let's check out some of the features now. All right, so one thing that the Tucson has that the Toyota just simply does not in that price range is remote start. So it's proximity entry, it's push button start, but it's also remote start. And one of the cool things about the remote start is that now that the vehicle started, all I need to do is walk up, press the proximity entry button on the door handle. Now there's actually even a light that lights up at night to show me where the door handle is. It's kind of funny because it's not that difficult to see. But yeah, I just press the button. I get in, and immediately the vehicle lights up. It recognizes that the key is inside the vehicle and it doesn't have to be started again. It's just ready to go. Now, everything that just occurred there, you can't do with the Toyota. So it doesn't have remote start, it doesn't have proximity entry, it doesn't have push button start. So none of those things are in the Toyota, all of which are in the Tucson at this price level. Keep in mind, we do have a lower price version called the Essential. That one is cheaper than the Toyota as well. By about $1,500. It doesn't have remote start either, and it doesn't have proximity entry. But I wanted to measure or compare these two vehicles as close as possible together. So when you finance both of these, the payments are going to be similar. This will still be a little bit lower, but most people finance, and that's why we're doing this comparison. All right, let's look at everything in this car. Okay, first things first, I want to compare the screens. Now this is an 8-inch touchscreen. It's a non-polarized screen, so even if you wear polarized sunglasses, you're going to be able to see the screen just fine. It's a pretty good resolution screen as well, so if I turn off that backup camera, you can see it looks really nice. Everything's nice and clear and easy to use, of course. Let's turn the backup camera on again, quickly compare that. So you do have dynamic steering lines, so those move with the steering wheel, which is kind of cool. And then you can also tap on the screen and hit this little icon here to give you a downward look over the rear bumper if you are trailering. And of course, it still has that dynamic steering line. Now, of course, this vehicle can trailer really nicely, pull the trailer really nicely, so kind of a nice option. Now, looking in the backup camera, again, look at the quality of the screen and the camera. Everything looks really great. Let's quickly hop into RAV4 and try that one. All right, so I fired up the Toyota, and first thing it does is come up with this annoying message that you have to get rid of. And there's our screen. Now this is also, also a non-polarized screen. You can tell if you turn the camera. If it doesn't kind of go weird blackness, then it's probably not polarized. So it looks pretty good. And again, very good resolution on everything. A little bit more complicated to use, I find anyway. Now that can be subjective, but note it's actually only a 7-inch screen. So the Toyota does have a smaller screen. Now there's no way of turning on the backup camera without actually putting the vehicle into reverse. So I'm going to do that now. And we're going to have a look here. And again, it's a pretty good resolution. I don't know that it's any worse or better than the one in the Tucson. I'd say it's about the same. It does have the dynamic steering lines that move pretty nicely. It doesn't have let me see, we got a couple options here. Let's change to a different view. Okay, there's a sort of a wide angle view and then sort of a normal view. And then you can turn off and on the different lines. So kind of a different style of backup camera option. So you can kind of go wide angle or not wide angle or whatnot. So I'm going to give the camera as a backup camera is kind of a tie. However, our screen on the Tucson is a little bit bigger. As far as the overall quality, the resolution, I'm looking at the words on the sign behind us, and they're pretty much the same level of blurriness. So I don't think that this one's any better or worse. But yeah, as far as the screen quality, the Tucson does have the nicer, larger screen. And as far as ease of use, well, we've got some hard buttons on the sides here. I've got the power and your tune. Very similar on the Tucson. Yeah, so back in the Tucson here, so I got to give the infotainment system to the Tucson. It's definitely the nicer screen to look at, a little bit bigger, a little bit easier to use, that sort of thing. Now, as far as the rest of the features, so a couple things to note. This one does have satellite radio. The RAV4 doesn't have that. It's got the TPMS system. So everything I'm about to mention, the RAV4 doesn't have. So while they do both have autonomous emergency braking, this one actually has junction detection. So if you're making a left turn, this vehicle can actually detect a car coming towards you and prevent you from entering that intersection. Now, we already know it's got the 8-inch screen, but it's also got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It has the driver attention alert system. So if you're at a stoplight and the car in front of you starts to go, this one will actually remind you that there's, you can actually start moving. You don't have to wait anymore. This one has Blue Link, so for 3 years for free, you have Blue Link telematics system. So that's where you can remote start the car from your cell phone, unlock the doors, lock the doors, find it on a map, track it, that sort of thing, all from the comfort of your home on your cell phone. Pretty cool. We also have not only the reverse camera, but you've also got, I'm going to have a quick look and see if it's got the autonomous braking in reverse, but it actually does have the reverse cross-traffic alert system. That's pretty cool. So if I have a look at that here. Yeah, so it's got rear cross-traffic safety alarm. So if you're backing up, it'll pick up pedestrians and cars crossing behind you and give you an alarm. For whatever reason, the RAV4 apparently doesn't have that. It's got blind spot monitoring, but according to Toyota, it doesn't have the cross traffic alert system. This one, as I mentioned before, does have the proximity key. We've got a heated steering wheel, which isn't in the other vehicle in the RAV4. This one also has a leather wrapped steering wheel, as you can see here. Really nice steering wheel. The RAV4 only has a polyurethane steering wheel. They do both have adaptive cruise control and lane keep assist. This one does have stop and go technology, with the RAV, I think you have to go into a higher trim level to get that. So as far as features go, we have a few more features in the Hyundai Tucson than in the RAV. However, the RAV4 does have the LED taillights, as I mentioned before, and a couple other things that I can't recall off the top of my head. I think it's like 2 extra features. One big pet peeve I have with the RAV and other Toyotas is that they don't have lit up USB ports. So you can see we've actually got nice backlit USB ports, so you can very easily see them at night. I will say this though, the RAV4 does have 5 USB ports, whereas the Tucson only has 2 for some reason. So they win on USB ports, that's for sure. As far as the instrument cluster goes, very similar layout in both. The center screen on both is pretty intuitive. One place where the Toyota definitely loses out is the ability to do this. So they do have a little pull-out flap, but ours actually slides out. So a little bit nicer there as well. All right, so having a seat back in the RAV4 here, as I mentioned, you've got the sort of polyurethane steering wheel. One thing that bothers me though is that on this side here, these buttons kind of control the little center screen there. And then you've got the answer call button there, and then the buttons for the infotainment system. So they kind of mix those up. And then on this side here, you've got the drive controls as well as some more stuff for that screen. So I find Hyundai's done a little bit of a better job laying out the buttons. But as far as the instrument cluster there, you can see, again, it looks fine. The center screen is nice. It's got some color to it. But again, I think Hyundai's done a little bit of a nicer job with the interior sort of layout and the way things look and feel and whatnot. But looks like that are subjective. So call it what you will. All right. So honestly, the Toyota is a great vehicle. Don't get me wrong. It's comfortable enough. It is pretty feature rich even in the base model. Toyota's got great reliability. There's no question at all. I think if you're comparing the two, you know, there might be some things that kind of irk you in the RAV4 and also in the Tucson. Don't get me wrong. For me, you know, having no backlighting on the USB ports drives me crazy because at night I can't find them. The heated seat buttons, for instance, right here, it's very kind of hard and flaky, whereas in the Tucson it's, you know, it's just feels more refined, and you only get a high-low here, whereas in the Tucson you get 3 levels. No heated steering wheel as well in this one. The screen is just, you know, it looks like it was just placed on there. They're both great vehicles, but I would take the Tucson all day long for the reasons that I've demonstrated. So I hope this helped you out somehow, some way. If you hate me now because you're a Toyota lover, well, so be it. I can't help you there, but don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is a bad vehicle. I'm not trying to bash the Toyota RAV4. I'm just trying to show why the Tucson, in my opinion, is the better vehicle of the two. Thank you so much for getting this far. I appreciate all your support. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you'd like to see future videos like this or any of my other review videos. Again, thanks so much. Have a wonderful day.